Senator McLaughlin, you have 2 minutes, please.
Minister, next Wednesday marks the 34th anniversary of a seminal moment in the history of our state. It's when Mary Manning refused to handle South African goods on Henry Street in this city, in Dunstores. And that strike that followed from that action lasted for 3 years. I'm sure you're very familiar with the history of that. And our government, in 1987, became the first state in the Western world to introduce economic sanctions against South Africa. We led the way in 1987. And I'm going to say something to you, because I believe what you articulated today in this chamber are sincerely held views. But I believe that this bill from Senator Francis Black is our Dunstores moment in terms of Palestine, where we get a chance to break the consensus that has utterly failed the Palestinian people and to take decisive leadership on this issue. The fact is, under international law, the development of illegal settlements is a war crime. Under international law, we are doing commerce with people who are committing war crimes under international law. And we are waiting for our European partners to do what's right. And they are not doing it. Not only that, they can't even criticise the decision of Donald Trump to put in place an embassy in Jerusalem. They can't even do that. So in the absence of leadership at European level, this is our Dunstores moment. This is when our state, once again, takes decisive leadership in the absence of international leadership and stands by an oppressed people. So I commend Senator Francis Black. This is your Mary Manning moment. This is our Dunstores moment in this House to do what's right, yet again.
Okay, off you go.
Cathaoirleach, I just really want to commend in the first instance Senator Francis Black for her dedication to Palestine, but for her dedication to bringing this bill forward. And I want to assure her, as she knows, that she has the full support, and this bill has the full support of the Sinn Féin party in this Seanad and much wider than that. The fact is that goods are produced as a result of war crimes, and we cannot condone that. And we have to use every instrument possible that's available to us. And Minister, this is an instrument of peace. There is no other way that this can be seen. We cannot continue to allow international law to be ignored. We have to stand up and be counted. This is an opportunity for us to be courageous, to be different, to be leaders. We can lead the way on this. So I want to thank Senator Black for leading the way on it, and to assure her that we will lead behind her. But Minister, I know you came here to convince us different today, and I want to acknowledge the place that you're coming from and the pragmatic things that you have done. But I would ask you to reconsider and to support this bill so that we have unanimity coming out of this House. Thank you.
Taoiseach, at the heart of this is the issue of what kind of state Israel is. And the fact of the matter is, we have heard voices from across this chamber, from all parties, acknowledging that Israel is an apartheid state. Any of us who have been there know that. Once you know that, it changes you. And just as it would be completely untenable in the 1980s to say, yes, but we must keep talking to the apartheid regime in South Africa, we must try and work with them. It was completely untenable then, and that's why, in the same way, you're completely wrong now. And I, like others, will acknowledge your sincerity on the issue, but I have to say, placing your trust in the Israeli government and the Trump regime is the last place to place your trust. I would ask you to listen to all of us across this chamber, from right to left to centre, all of us together today, who acknowledge that Israel is an apartheid state, and yes, we must stand against apartheid.
Thank you, Senator Moran Devine.
I'm going to try and do a David Norris here and bring a bit of culture to this discussion. I got his poem from Palestinian women on International Women's Day just gone, and it's called Here We Will Stay. In Lydia, in Ramlah, in the Galilee, we shall remain, like a wall upon your chest and in your throat, a cactus torn, and in your eyes a sandstorm. We shall remain a wall upon your chest. Clean your dishes in your restaurants, serve drinks in your bars, sweep the floors of your kitchens to snatch a bite for our children from your fangs. Here we shall say, sing our songs, take to the angry streets and fill prisons with dignity. In Lydda, in Ramallah, in the Galilee, we shall remain. Guard the shade of the fig and the olive trees. Ferment rebellion in our children as yeast in dough. Here we shall stay. Guramagat.
Senator O'Donnell.
Minister, thank you for your contribution. I listened to it and I couldn't help but think of Einstein's definition of insanity. Keeping trying to do the same things over and over again and expecting different results. You talked to us about the issue of the solar panels and electricity and water into the occupied territories, as if Israel isn't, and therefore you aren't led to believe wouldn't continue to shut off and control people's water and electricity. You talked to us about advocating strongly for a commercial port in Gaza, knowing full well what happens to fishermen in Gaza, knowing full well what happens to children when they're playing soccer on the beach in Gaza. So with the greatest respect, I don't doubt at all your bona fides in this regard, but I don't share, based on fact and reality, your hope in that regard. Minister, you also cite the peace process as cause for the state not to support this bill. You then go on to outline in your own contribution the litany of executions, slaughter, mass murder, the imprisonment of children in military courts, the continued demolition of homes, and further illegal incursions into Palestinian lands. Minister, there is no peace process in the Middle East. So I actually think it's a flag of convenience, it's a cloak, it's a cover to try and use that as an excuse not to support this bill today. And you have said that you don't want to place yourself on a particular side or be accused of being partisan. Sometimes in peace processes, and I said this the last day during the debate, we need to place ourselves in a particular partisan position. Sometimes we need transformative decisions to be taken on the international stage. The most glaring example and the most obvious example and the most relevant example in our own peace process was when the British government, the European Union, the intelligence agencies, both domestic and foreign, to the USA, were telling President Bill Clinton not to grant Gerry Adams a visa into the US. So all of the great and the good, all of the so-called experts, all of those who are actually opposed to the advance of dialogue and a peace process said, don't do this. But what was required was a decisive, definitive political decision to be taken. And we have seen the fruits of that decision play out and the impact it had in our own. So I would put it to you, Minister, that you need to take a definitive decision in this regard, and you need to support this bill. You cited too, Minister, legal, political and practical effects as reasons not to support the bill but to oppose it. And it struck me, Minister, that not once did you mention the morality of this issue. Not once did you mention, and maybe I'll be heard, Chair.
Sorry?
Maybe I'll be heard.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you heard. Yeah, sorry, it's quite noisy in here. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you. Not once was the issue of the morality of this bill.
Can I just say, I think what the leader was discussing was the possible extension. I've asked him to extend the time.
Well, I welcome that, if that's the case.
And the leader is given the opportunity, he'll interject on that. But just we have to have quiet in the room when the speakers are speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, you then go on further to cite what is and isn't within your legal gift to do, and of course that's contested by Senator Black and those of us supporting this bill. What is and isn't in your legal power to do in this regard? And even if we were to take that at face value, Taoiseach, what is within your legal gift to do is to adhere to the will of both houses of the Oireachtas and to recognise the state of Palestine as the government is mandated to do. What is within your legal gift, Minister, is when all of the slaughter that you rightly and factually outline has taken place, is to expel the Israeli ambassador from Ireland, given your quick reaction to do so with the Russian ambassador of late as well.
Sorry.
For a point of clarification, the state did not expel the Russian ambassador at any point. I think it's important on a debate of this import for us to be accurate. There's been a whole series of inaccuracies that we've just heard from the latest speaker.
Well, there hasn't been a series of inaccuracies from me, Minister. But I'd say this, even if I was to take your word.
You need to exaggerate for effect.
Well, no, I'm not exaggerating, Minister.
Sorry.
Minister, there's no need to exaggerate this issue, because this issue is hugely exaggerated given the volume of slaughter that is happening against the people of Palestine. So that is the intention of this bill. It's not to put you under any political pressure. It's not to make you uncomfortable. It is to stand in the proud lineage of the Irish people in the opposition of apartheid.
And this minister has done that the whole time, to be fair.
Sorry, can I just have Senator O'Donnell without interruption, please?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate
And you've only 1
your
minute
guidance.
left.
Well, I will finish on this.
For the work he's done already.
And I have recognised what the Minister has done, and I recognised it previously, Leader, but I'm not going to get into a ding-dong with you, because this issue is far too important for that, with the greatest respect to you. And listen...
Sorry.
Listen,
I'm going to have to insist that we just have whoever
yeah.
is on their feet speaking in this House, please. Thank you. And
Chair.
you have to conclude, President.
And through the Chair, we have acknowledged, and the Minister acknowledged, and I concede also, that people have deeply held and passionate views in relation to these issues. So you would at the very least afford us the courtesy and the opportunity to express those deeply valued and held views without the kind of interruption that we've seen. So in conclusion, I'll ask Caherly, Nelson Mandela came to a joint sitting of these houses in the early 1990s, and he said what made the practical difference on behalf of the Irish people was definitive action from the people, was a boycott, was solidarity. And that can make the difference here with this bill before us in the House today. The Minister asked and posed the question, where would him supporting this bill leave him as an Irish Government Minister? It would leave him on the side of right. It would leave him on the side of Mandela. It would leave him on the side of justice. So I would encourage the Minister, the Government and colleagues in Fine Gael to look at this bill again, to look at what is happening in Palestine, to look at the will of this House, and indeed, I believe, the will of the vast majority of Irish people who want to see us take this mode of solidarity.